PanTech Chronicles, Book 1, Shadowfalcon, written by F. Lockhaven and M. A. Owens. Chapter 16. We were all startled by the knock, because it came at the most inopportune time a knock could possibly come.
It's probably Father,
Ferris said, rising to his feet. Linus extended his arm out in front of him, blocking Ferris's way to the door. They made eye contact, and Linus just shook his head, making his way to the door instead. When he opened it, Peter and Oscar were standing there.
Wow, you've settled in quickly,
Peter said, his tone filled with venom.
Going to need the armor repaired. Stuff's junk. You trip on a rock and next thing you know it's flying apart.
Linus said, laughing. Oscar shook his head.
Enough. You need to come with us. Will you do it quietly?
Linus just nodded, taking a step toward the door, but Peter put his hand on his chest and shoved him back a step.
She's coming too,
He said, pointing at me.
Why? I thought you just needed me to come. Is this an arrest or a party? Should we just go invite the whole village?
Linus asked, his tone coming across more desperate than mocking.
Come on, you expect us to believe you'll behave? You will if she's with you, I'll bet.
Linus looked to Oscar, but found no support from the quieter man either.
He has a point.
Linus glared at them both, looking between the two of them and me several times. He was trying to modify whatever plan he had on the fly, but it didn't look like he was coming up with anything. His breathing became deeper, and his jaw clenched. Now he was only looking at the two of them.
It's time to go, Linus.
Oscar finally said. He stood aside, nodding for Linus to step through the door, then to me to follow them. Ferris took a step forward, but Mother grabbed him by the arm, shaking her head. She looked just as worried and upset as him, but it was probably for the best that she stopped him. If Linus thought it was wise not to contradict them, it would have been an even worse idea for Ferris to try something. When I stepped outside, Peter grabbed me roughly by the arm.
No running off, girl. Understand?
I gritted my teeth and pulled against him, which I doubt he even realized. Linus spoke for me.
She understands. Since you're making me do things this way, can we at least stop by Taylor's clinic so I can say goodbye?
Peter and Oscar looked at one another, before Oscar nodded. We walked for a few minutes in silence, before finally arriving at the clinic and being greeted by Kara.
Oh, hello, Taylor. I didn't think I'd see you today. Is everything okay?
Her voice softened as she noticed Peter's hand holding my arm. Linus walked over to our large animal cage and peered inside. The door was raised, and the lock was hanging loose.
What happened here? I thought you had a camel in here yesterday. Does it look like someone tried to cut the bars in the back to you?
We all tilted our heads almost simultaneously, and I started to step toward it to see what he was talking about, but Peter still held my arm.
Do you mind?
I asked him, with a bit of bite in my voice. He released his grip, and I leaned into the cage after Linus stepped back to let me through. I looked closely at the bars and didn't see anything out of the ordinary.
Doesn't look like it to me. Not sure why someone would try to...
I felt a foot shove into my rear end, sending me falling into the cage. From my hands and knees, I spun my head around to see. It was Linus. He slammed the door of the cage down and fastened the lock. He took the key and handed it to Kara.
I'll kill you if you let her out before I'm gone. Understand, girl?
Kara looked to me, then to Linus, clenching her fists and taking a step back.
I won't. I promise.
She said, as she took the key with trembling hands.
Linus, what are you doing?
I shouted.
Things my way, Taylor. Not going to let them set the terms and use you some way to get to me.
We weren't going...
Oscar started, before Linus cut him off.
Shut your mouth. You're a bigger snake than the one we just left dead in the desert.
What snake? We don't know anything about...
Peter tried to speak, but Linus cut him off too.
With all the noise we made? All of you know about it. Cut the crap. Let's go get it over with.
He walked away toward the gate only a couple of 100 feet from my clinic and stopped short of it, turning around and facing the two of them again. The three of them now had their sides facing me and barely within range of hearing.
Why'd you stop?
Oscar asked.
I thought we were leaving.
Saw Peter's hand hit the silent charge on his blaster. If you're that excited to kill me, at least look me in the eye when you do it. I didn't even think Peter was yellow enough to shoot an unarmed man in the back.
Peter rested his hand on his blaster.
Oh, come on, Oscar. He already knows we were sent here to kill him. Let's stop playing around. Whether the villagers know it or not doesn't make any difference.
The commander didn't want us inciting the rebels.
Oscar said, his voice still calm and even.
That doesn't even make sense. They'll be glad to see us killing one of our own. You can even stay out of it. We'll have us one of those high noon showdowns, and I'll show Linus here he's not the hot stuff he thinks he is.
Peter, stop. She specifically asked you not to make a show of it. You're going to be reprimanded yourself at this rate.
Let him.
Linus said, tipping his hat toward Peter, then moving his poncho to the side to show the rifle.
No! Please!
I pleaded, gripping the bars of the cage.
It was my fault. I asked him to come with me. I'm the one who should be punished.
It was within your rights as a villager to use the rifle assigned to your village to hunt the snake.
Oscar said.
Linus, on the other hand, was forbidden to harm it, and this is just one of his many offenses. He's been given chance after chance. It was never going to end any other way.
I looked to Kara.
Kara, let me out or I'll never forgive you.
She hung her head. I hadn't noticed it, but she was crying, holding the key tight to her chest.
Ready when you are.
Linus said, nodding to Peter.
Better take a few steps to the side, Oscar.
I won't. This isn't a game. Accept this with some dignity, Linus.
In a flash, Peter ripped his blaster from his holster, but fired it before he could bring it up to aim properly, his head rocking back. His blaster let loose the shot that landed just in front of Linus, sending a spray of sand into his face. Peter fell backward onto the ground with a thud, causing a small cloud of dust to rise where he'd fallen, dead before he hit the sand. Oscar was only distracted a moment, his eyes wide as he looked down at his partner, but his hand was flying toward his own blaster even before he'd fully turned back to face Linus. Linus had dropped to one knee, yanking the bolt back, slamming it forward to chamber a new round. Oscar drew his blaster and fired in the exact same moment Linus fired his second shot. The blast had struck him in the side, sending him spinning and falling onto the ground. Oscar dropped his blaster and grabbed his neck with both hands. Blood poured from between his fingers. He dropped to his knees, choking out his final words.
You could have been a good soldier. You threw it all away.
His last words came out garbled and quiet as he fell forward onto the ground. Linus dropped his rifle and tried to stand, blood pouring from the massive wound in his side. He took one step toward us, but fell down onto his hands and knees. He rolled onto his back, coughing.
Kara, please.
I cried out, shaking the cage, tears pouring from my eyes. She hesitated for a moment, then ran over and unlocked the cage. I ran as quickly as I could, stumbling and falling twice before I made it to where he was lying on the ground, holding his hand over his side.
I'll take care of it. Let me see the wound,
I demanded.
Kara, bring my medical bag. Hurry!
I shouted to her over my shoulder. She scrambled into the tent to retrieve it. He just shook his head, refusing to move his hands.
Sorry, Taylor. I should have waited until we were out of the city and let them shoot me in the back, but I wanted to go on my own terms.
Shut up. You're not going anywhere. After this, they're going to decide you're too good of a soldier to lose. They're going to punish you and make you go through some kind of training, and you'll be reassigned before you know it. Move your hand.
Reluctantly, he agreed. When I saw it, I put both of my hands over my mouth, and all I could manage to do was tremble as I sobbed. I couldn't help him. No one could.
Hey,
He said, his voice barely having any strength behind it now.
I was wrong.
What do you mean? What were you wrong about?
I asked.
Didn't think I'd ever be happy another day after I was recruited, but being with you the last
He paused, unable to continue speaking, taking a few deep breaths to try again.
Thank you, Taylor.
I grabbed his hand and held it tightly as I could. I wanted to say something in return. I knew I should, but I couldn't. I felt like I would choke if I tried to speak, and no words would come out. I lost myself again in my sobbing. I wanted to shout to the gathering crowd to help me, but I knew they couldn't. I wanted to scream at Peter and Oscar for what they'd done, but they were dead. For a minute, Linus squeezed my hand in return, but his grip slowly loosened until soon there was no grip left at all. His eyes were open, gazing at the sky, but he wasn't there anymore. He was gone. I couldn't feel anything but the urge to scream. I wanted to beg him not to leave me. A hand gripped my shoulder, and I didn't even wait to see who it was. I turned around and tackled them, landing blow after blow on their face, screaming with all the fury I'd been holding back. It was Kara. She tried to shield her face. After a moment, I realized she just kept repeating the same thing over and over.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I jumped to my feet, shocked at the realization that I'd just attacked my friend. She was bleeding from her lip and nose and was still crying, making no effort to get up off the ground.
Kara,
I clenched both my fists together in front of me, only now noticing they were both covered in blood, and screamed as loud as I could until I ran out of breath. And then I did it again. When I couldn't scream anymore, I grabbed the rifle, and I ran all the way out of the village as hard as I could, giving no thought to my direction or destination. I just wanted to run forever until time ended, or until I couldn't feel the pain anymore, whichever came first, if either even came at all. Chapter 17. I ran until I realized where I'd been running and stopped when I arrived. I'd gone back to the snake, and I wasn't sure why. Maybe it was because it was the last place we'd gone to. Maybe it was guilt. Or maybe there was another reason. I reached down to my side, relieved that I'd brought my canteen of water along. I drank everything that was left, which wasn't much, and fastened the empty canteen back to my belt. I sat on the sand and took in my surroundings. It was starting to get dark, but tonight would be a full moon, the only night where it was possible to see anything 10 steps in front of you. Tonight, in particular, was looking to be a bright one, just as visible as a cloudy day. It was still suicide to be out here this late, as that was when the most unkind inhabitants of the desert went out to hunt and scavenge, and I was sitting at an enormous dinner table with more than enough to eat for all. Maybe I'd die out here, and they could have me too. I'd always cared deeply about the animals here, ever since I was a small child. I wouldn't blame them. After all, the unkindest animal of all was us, humans. No other animal would kill their own just for craving freedom. Suddenly, without the fear of death, I found myself craving the idea of going out with a bang myself, in a way. What fascinating animals might be drawn to the corpse of this snake, the biggest and strongest of the desert? For once, they wouldn't have to fight over their food, but they probably would anyway. The vultures were the first to arrive. A few had even arrived ahead of me, but within an hour, there were more than I'd ever seen in one place. They paid me no mind as they crowded next to one another, eating their fill, but in such a hurry that one might wonder if they had somewhere they needed to be. Like some kind of family appointment that had been long planned and couldn't be missed, and they were too afraid to pass up this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And so, they ate as quickly as they could. I soon learned what all the hurry was about. A group of boars moved in on the opposite side, but not before some of them charged the vultures, who had probably seen them nearby as they swooped in earlier. Guess I'd have eaten in a hurry, too. The boar alone wasn't the most menacing thing in the desert, but the fact they traveled in groups and attacked anything that sought to compete with them made them a force to be reckoned with. Being that they only came out at night, like most animals of the desert, I'd only seen a few in my lifetime. In the wild, at least, not counting the domesticated ones in the village. I readied the rifle just in case. The next animal to arrive was an iron fox, but most villagers called them the gray fox. Their soft gray fur and fluffy, white-tipped tails made them one of the most beautiful animals you could ever hope to lay eyes on in this inhospitable place. She approached cautiously, crouched low, moving only a few steps at a time, watching as the other animals ate aggressively. They paid no attention to her, and she intended to avoid them. One hit from a boar's long tusk, and she'd be dead, but that could be said of most animals. She settled in next to a small piece that had detached itself, well, that had been forcibly detached from the rest of the snake, away from all the other animals. She took small bites, and while she slowly chewed, she held up her head to survey. It reminded me to stop watching them so closely and take a look around myself. The sands of the desert glittered in the moonlight, since this light was far less overwhelming than the sun. I slowly laid flat onto the sand, looking up at the moon and stars. For the first time, I could finally feel some calmness returning to my body. I couldn't process everything that had happened today right now, even if I'd wanted to, and I didn't. I felt as though if I allowed all of the hurt to absorb into my mind at once, I would die or go mad. No one had come to be with me out here, and while I wanted to use that as yet another reason to hate, I knew that there was no way to follow me all this way. Why should anyone risk almost certain death to hunt down someone who clearly wanted to be alone? A shadow passed in front of the moon and came as a welcome distraction from my dark thoughts. But what was it? Vultures didn't fly that high, certainly not that quickly, and no other birds that I knew of flew at night. Before I could spend too much time thinking about it, another distraction came. Just as fascinating. A small herd of deer appeared over a dune and made their way over to the snake. The first to arrive bent down and pulled off a piece. I couldn't believe my eyes. Deer were previously herbivores, but ever since PanTech sabotaged our plant life, most of the deer had died, and we couldn't afford to hunt them anymore. If we did, they might go extinct, with no hope of ever returning. The ones that survived must have adapted to scavenge, in addition to grazing on what little plant life remained. I had seen some eating cacti, but this I hadn't expected. I caught myself desperately wishing Father were here. I wanted him to see this. Father, what must he be going through right now? What if he was trying to fight through the crowd to get to me just before I ran away? I wanted so much to hug him and cry in his arms. I wanted to hear him tell me that I would be okay, and that he and Mother loved me, and they would help me through it. But Father wasn't here, and he hadn't been there either. It was a selfish thought anyway. Why would I wish that sight on anyone? Father had genuinely liked Linus, and already despised PanTech far more than I did. He might have tried to help him and gotten himself killed in the process, just as I'd wanted to do. Linus knew. He knew that I would intervene to help him, and he'd taken us by the clinic because he'd remembered seeing the cage before. PanTech knew he cared for me, and they used me to hurt him, to catch him off guard and make him vulnerable, and to stop him from getting the jump on them. He knew exactly what would happen to him if he helped me hunt the snake. He knew why they were there. He helped me anyway, and I led him to his death. I may as well have shot him myself. Oh, Linus! I curled up and began to sob again, holding my hand over my mouth, trying not to be loud and disturb the animals nearby. But the fox had noticed me anyway. It stopped eating and was watching me curiously. It snapped its head around suddenly and bit something. A shadow passed over it, stopped for a moment, then attempted to fly away, but crash-landed a few feet away. The fox looked toward it and collapsed instantly. Dead? Not a sound had been made. What was happening? I changed my position to bending down on one knee, holding the rifle in my hand. Had I gone mad? It was like a ghost made of shadow. If the fox hadn't bitten down on it, or if I hadn't been watching her at the very moment it happened, I'd have never known for sure that what I was seeing was real. I still wasn't sure. Could she be sick? I crouched down as I walked slowly toward the fox. She was definitely dead if she let me get this close. No, something was off. I leaned in closer, only to find that the fox was still breathing, and breathing even harder as I got closer. Something moved again out of the corner of my eye, but by the time I focused on the spot, it was gone. If it had been anything. I gripped my rifle tightly. A small cluster of clouds was passing over now, making shadows jump and dance everywhere. One of the boars had started running in our direction, but before it could get too close, it fell flat onto the sand, collapsing mid-charge. Was the flesh of the snake poisonous? Was it affecting the minds and bodies of these creatures to make them sick? As the clouds cleared and the scenery was still again, illuminated by the full glory of the moonlight, I finally spotted something near the boar. It tried to take off but couldn't. Its wing was injured. It was smaller than the big vultures, but even if the vultures were the size of me, they couldn't have taken down an adult boar like that. Could it? No. But what if it was? Impossible. I was still so upset. I was seeing things. I was going mad. I rubbed my eyes and opened them again, but it was still there. It might have been easier to convince me it was a ghost than what my eyes were showing me. This was a Shadowfalcon. Another boar charged after seeing his comrade collapse, and the falcon just barely made it out of the way. Why had it not paralyzed this boar too? The boar charged again. This time the escape was even more narrow. The boar had bumped it through the air, but missed goring it with its tusks. No way I could miss this chance. Most people lived their entire lives without seeing one of them. No one had ever seen one up close. The few who had seen them were never believed, and here I was, nearly in reach of one, and about to stand there and watch it be gored to death by a boar? Not a chance. I aimed the rifle, and just before the boar finished its third charge, I fired a shot that made it slide to a stop, making one attempt to return to its feet before falling again and going still. The shot had spooked every animal around, sending a flurry of feathers into the air and boars charging in all different directions, though they didn't go far before slowly circling back. I approached the falcon, and he collapsed to the ground. He'd used their defense I'd heard about, which I had hoped wasn't true. It was said that a Shadowfalcon would turn his paralysis weapon on himself and stop his own heart if he found himself cornered and unable to fight. I walked over and picked up his body, my heart suddenly heavy again. I shouldn't have approached him like that. Then again, he'd have died anyway with his injury. He was pitch black, and the glistening of his feathers wasn't too much unlike the starlight in the sky. His plumicorns were the only feathers on his body that weren't completely black, instead carrying a red tint. His eyes were a deep, solid green, and glowed eerily in the moonlight. Other animals with low light vision had similar eyes. His must be able to see through almost no light at all. I sat him back on the ground, and with a heavy sigh, took a couple of steps back before something tugged at my gut. My instincts told me to look again, to look closer. I picked him up again and realized that he was still alive, just barely. He must have used too much of his paralysis toxin against the fox and boar. Perhaps the fox's bite had startled him into using more than he realized. He had paralyzed himself completely, but his heart was still beating. If I brought him back home, I could treat his injury and heal his wing. I could come out one night and release him once he'd recovered. I needed this. I needed someone or something to need me the way this falcon needed me now. I was going to save him.
I'll call you. Ghost.
Chapter 18. I wrapped Ghost tightly in my scarf, leaving only enough room for him to breathe, and wrapped a single wrap over his eyes so he wouldn't panic as much. I had planned to hunker down and ride out the night once I decided I even wanted to return at all. But by then, this animal would be in a full panic and would likely end itself once it built up enough toxin again. If he was to have any chance, I needed to return home immediately, and I needed the help of my only friend, a friend who I just screamed that I would never forgive and punched in the face several times. This was a purpose I needed, and I needed to put it above everything else, even my own safety. If I couldn't give this Shadowfalcon, what I once believed was a mythological creature, a chance, then I didn't want to go on living. I had to try at least to know I'd tried. To know I didn't let my lack of nerve and courage and weak guts stop me from doing the right thing. Linus! Linus didn't let anyone or anything stop him from doing what he thought was right. He acted selflessly, even though he claimed otherwise, and spat in the face of death itself. There were surely so few men so heroic who ever lived before, or would ever live after. I didn't care what beasts, hungry for fresh meat, stalked me in the night. I would give them something, but it wouldn't be meat. It would be the fury I'd held inside me. That I would give them, and they could choke on it. I stood to my feet, cradling Ghost under one arm, my rifle under the other, and backing away from the approaching boars. One charged, and I quickly sat Ghost onto the ground next to me, aimed and fired. It had to be the most stubborn and aggressive animal in the whole desert. Anything else would have been long gone by now. Another charged, and I had to shoot him 3 times. That's 2 shots left, I think. What if Linus didn't get the chance to fully load it? I had no extra rounds on me. I could come back tomorrow with some men from the village, and we'd drag all of the boar back for slaughter, if there was anything left of them. But then they'd see the snake and panic. It would be best to let the desert take them. Plenty of hungry things out there would. I picked up Ghost again and ran. The fox still wasn't stirring, nor was the boar he'd paralyzed, so he would probably be like this for a while. I had no way of knowing for how long. The fox was a beautiful creature in its own right, and I felt a pang of guilt for not being able to take her too. I would return if I could, even though it would almost certainly be too late for her. She was probably already dead. Cloud cover came again, and I could no longer see where I was going. Before it became completely dark, I crouched down next to a large rock and tried to focus on what I could hear. A lot of good it would probably do me, but it was all I could do. The desert was full of silent killers. Half of the things in the desert could kill you without making a sound. Some, like Ghost, could kill you without you even making a sound. There was nothing but silence, occasionally interrupted by a gentle breeze. A normally gentle breeze, at night, in the desert, was anything but gentle. With everything that had happened, I didn't even have time to stop and realize how cold I was, even though I was freezing. It wasn't dangerous, but it was extremely uncomfortable. Yet another reason few people ventured out at night, and no one went into the open desert like this. Was my family worried for me? Did they assume I might be already dead? Would Kara care after what I did to her? Oh no, what if my father and brother went out looking for me? Normally in that situation, they would request to use the village's rifle. But I had it now. No, not now. I couldn't get caught up in all of this now. I'd start thinking about Linus again and I felt something shift my clothing and crawl over my leg. A snake? Or maybe a lizard? Or scorpion? I stood completely still, only shifting my eyes so that I could see the light returning as the clouds slowly blew past. The light came agonizingly slow, as I felt whatever it was crawl even further up my leg. When the light finally came, I found myself wishing it was any of those 3 things I'd considered. Even all of them. It was a terror ant. I couldn't see the nest, but I wasn't covered, so this one must have been the scout, trying to figure out what to make of me. I resisted the urge to leap to my feet and flee. I had to be patient. It would eventually crawl away from me, but the moment it did, I would have to leave. If it suspected I was edible, it would send a scent back to the nest, and I'd be swarmed. Just as it crawled off of me, darkness came again with more clouds, but I couldn't risk staying. I would rather die by the teeth, claws, tusks, or stingers of almost anything else in the desert than to be eaten alive by terror ants. So, I ran, in total darkness, in the direction of the village. I still wasn't close. I was miles away. The snake had been near the boundary, and I was less than halfway back. 2 bullets left, with one chambered and ready to fire. I still had my knife, too. Running in the darkness was basically begging to be killed, and any number of creatures might give chase and kill something strange that obviously couldn't see where it was going as well as they could. Ghost still hadn't stirred, so I at least had that going for me. My legs burned and my lungs ached. I was still battered from the fight with the snake and fighting to get out of that cage. My body had all but given out on me as a reward. I couldn't allow it to. I pushed hard and found myself agonizing over the thought that the empty canteen bouncing around on my belt would offer me no relief. The cold air that filled my lungs, which was so much different from the comforting warmth I was used to, did no favors for me either. The light was just up ahead, moving slowly to meet me across the sand, the friend I needed right now, offering me the only chance I had of making it back home alive. Once I made it a few steps in, I continued running, but strained my neck to look over my shoulder, ready for anything. Nothing was there, and it seemed that, at least for this brief moment, I had a little luck left in me after all. I slowed my pace to allow my legs a chance to make a slight recovery. I was able to walk like this for a while. It was quiet. Too quiet. I could see Linus's face again and hear his last words. He told me I made him happy. It felt strange, because I also wondered if I would ever be happy again. We'd only known each other for a few days, but I'd never felt that way about anyone before. My mood swung wildly from sadness back to anger again when I thought of the life we might have had together. The children we might have had. Grandchildren. I hated PanTech for taking him away from me. They would pay for this. A movement far away caught my attention. It was a panther. They were strictly nocturnal and normally shied away from humans, but that was during the day. At night, I must have looked just as delicious as any other animal caught out alone, away from the rest of its herd. It walked with legs sharply bent, taking long and careful strides. I continued with my pace more or less the same. I didn't want to run, or I knew it would immediately give chase. I'd hoped that our uneasy truce would hold, at least long enough for me to get close to the lights of the village. It would run away then, surely. But those lights weren't in sight, and I was about to lose what little light I did have, as another inopportune cloud approached. I had seconds, and I couldn't take the chance. I stopped, sat ghost on the ground, and fired a shot at the panther. It jumped just as I'd raised the rifle, causing me to miss. Of all the times to miss, it ran toward me, full power and speed, and I aimed as carefully as possible. One shot left, just one shot. I drew in a deep breath and held it, steadying myself as much as I could. But it wasn't enough. There's just something about a black panther charging at you against a fading light, with your last shot that does something to the nerves. I fired again and missed. This was it. No. I still had my knife, and I drew it. I still had my fingers. I'd stab it until the blade broke and gouge its eyes if I had to. I still had life in me, and as long as I had the life to breathe, I had the life to fight. I threw my rifle at it as it was about to pounce and screamed, hoping against hope that it would be startled at an unusual sound from its prey it didn't normally hunt. It wasn't. I was knocked to the ground hard, and I felt claws dig deep into my shoulders. Before it could sink its teeth into my neck, I was able to plant my knife all the way up to the hilt somewhere into its body. I'd hoped the neck. The other paw slammed into my other shoulder, not digging in as deeply, but enough that I lost grip on my knife. I slapped and clawed at the beast's face as it tried to maneuver to deliver the killing blow. Light was coming from somewhere now, but I couldn't look away from the panther, or I was dead. After a short moment, the light was bright enough to make out the features of its face. The beast cried out and jumped backward. As it did, I saw a spear sticking out of its side, which the wielder quickly pulled back. I couldn't make out the figure. The lantern was placed on the ground, at their back, and they were only a shadow. Female, I thought, but I couldn't say for sure. Had Kara come to rescue me? The figure held the spear in a warrior's stance as the panther charged again. She thrust it into the beast's leg, took 2 steps forward with incredible finesse, and threw 2 more thrusts into the panther's chest before it could jump back. Was that?
Mother!
I shouted.
Run, Taylor. I'll stop it from following,
She said with surprising calmness.
Not until I find Ghost. He's here. I just put him on the ground.
She brought the spear in closer and held it above her head, leaning forward. Some kind of exotic stance I'd never seen before. The panther ran but soon turned back around. They fought this way. If they were wounded, they'd run a few steps away and turn to use their charge, and did this repeatedly. Their endurance was greater than anything else in the desert, even the boars.
Take your time. This will be over soon, and I'll help you look.
Still calm, with a voice as even as stone. First, she knew about the PanTech armor, and now she fights with more skill than almost any man I'd seen. I had so many questions, but between what had happened with Linus and now finding and rescuing Ghost, there just wasn't room in my mind. Just as I found him and the rifle, the panther charged Mother and pounced through the air. She stood straight, then stepped to her left, as though it were part of a dance she'd performed thousands of times, spinning the spear in an arc and slicing it across the side of the panther's neck. It must have realized the fight was not in its favor anymore, because it turned immediately and ran away, off into the direction it had originally come from. I took a step forward, but fell to my knee. My body had reached its limits. Mother ran over and caught me before I fell.
Mother, listen. This Shadowfalcon. Find Kara. Tell her to bring the small animal cage. Don't unwrap it.
I spilled all of this onto her, because I thought I would pass out, but somehow I didn't. Mother slipped my arm over her shoulder and helped me walk. We walked and walked and walked, but neither of us could find words for the other. At times, I would catch her looking down at me, with the saddest expression on her face. All of my mental power was invested into screaming at my legs to keep walking. One more step, then one more, until finally we'd reach the village. Every inch of my body protested and seemed to threaten me if I chose anything other than immediate medical attention and sleep, but that's not the choice I had to make. I glanced down at Ghost, still calm for now. I had to go to Kara and say whatever was needed to make her forgive me. We had a mythical beast to save. Chapter 19. As we entered the village, I could feel my strength returning. At least, the illusion of strength. I had not slept, and it was nearly morning. It would be early morning for Kara when I woke her. She was nearly my age, but lived alone. Her mother had died when she was very young, and her father died just a couple of years ago. She'd be more than capable of taking care of herself, but I worried for her, and I imagined she must feel very lonely, especially with a friend who punches her in the face.
It's all right, Mother.
I said weakly.
I can make it to Kara's from here.
I held the rifle up toward her, but she shook her head.
I know you. You'll bleed out trying to save that bird, or wait too long to clean your wound. I'm better at cleaning and sewing wounds than you might think.
Normally, I would have been skeptical of her statement, given how pretty and delicate Mother went out of her way to be. But now I wasn't sure. There was more to Mother than I realized, and for some reason, she'd kept it from me. Soon I'd push for an explanation, even if she didn't want to give one to me, but soon felt like it was so far away. For now, I trusted her.
I believe you,
I said.
but you don't have to. I'm sure Kara can check my wounds while I get started on Ghost.
Ghost? I can't believe you've actually captured a Shadowfalcon, Taylor. I've never seen one. Your father swore he'd seen one as a boy, but I'd always wondered if he was mistaken.
Mother?
I asked, after a moment of silence.
Yes?
What did they do with Linus?
She took a deep breath and let it out slowly.
Your father and your brother insisted on burying him in the village graveyard. I tried, but I couldn't talk them out of it. I spoke to the other two PanTech employees that came by later to retrieve them, and told them we were planning to bury the other two next, so it wouldn't look suspicious that we'd only buried Linus. They accepted my explanation, but still took the other two back with them. And shortly after,
She sighed.
they returned to take Linus's body as well. I'm so sorry, Taylor.
I slowly shook my head.
No. He's gone. It doesn't matter if his meat and bones are here or there or wherever. They took him away from me either way.
Mother leaned her head down and touched it to mine. We stayed that way for a moment, It caused my tears to flow again, but I sealed them off no sooner than they'd started.
Come on.
I said.
We need to move quickly.
A moment later, we were knocking on Kara's door. She opened it up almost immediately, so quickly that it startled me. When she saw it was me, she took a step back and hung her head.
Taylor,
No, I'm sorry, Kara. Sorry for everything. I'm sorry for the things I said to you earlier. I'm sorry for hitting you. I'm sorry, too, for strolling into your house in the dark hours of the morning, bleeding on your floor, and with an injured animal that needs saving. Will you please help me?
I asked, tearing up yet again. Pull it together, Taylor. You don't have time for this,
You didn't need to ask.
she said.
Tell me what you need and... Wait, is that...
A Shadowfalcon? Yes.
Kara put her hand over her heart, taking a step forward to get a closer look.
This is a sign from the gods, Taylor. It must be. I don't know what it means, but it means something.
Maybe. But the gods aren't here to patch him up. Mother's going to tend to my wounds while you assist me, so I won't be moving. I need you to take me to a clean table and fetch my bag from the clinic. Bring a sheet of leather, about half an arm's length, and one of our smaller cages. I have some thick, long leather gloves there as well. You know the ones. I'd been working on them to use for handling terror ant hives. I'll need them to handle him once his paralysis wears off.
She nodded with each thing I mentioned.
Got it. Anything else?
I knew there'd be a lot of things I'd forget. Poor Kara would have to do a lot of running.
Some water for her, please.
Mother added. Kara nodded, then motioned for us to follow her. She led us into a room with a large workbench and items made of leather hanging all around. Belts, gloves, aprons, and more.
I didn't know you did leather working.
I said.
I do. I'd love to talk about it now, but I know there isn't time. If there's nothing else, I'm off.
I nodded.
Thank you.
I turned and leaned the rifle against the wall before laying Ghost across the clean workbench. I unwrapped my scarf from his body, but leaving it over his eyes, and began looking him over. Now, under the light of a brighter lantern, he looked even more amazing. But better than that, he looked alive. Completely immobilized by his own toxin, but still breathing shallow breaths. I gently extended one wing, the wing I already suspected of being healthy, and studied it as a reference. I expected his other wing to be broken when I slowly, very slowly, extended it, but was relieved to see that it wasn't. At the same time, my mother had pulled back my shirt to check my wound. Her sigh gave away that it was a little more serious than she was hoping, but not life-threatening, just a lot of work. I was somewhat embarrassed, but I knew I would have to take my shirt off so my mother could treat the wounds. That's just the way it would have to be. I attempted to raise my arms above my head, but found that I couldn't.
It's all right. I'll cut them off. They're destroyed anyway.
Mother said, sensing my frustration at the thought of having my arms forced above my head, then potentially having to do delicate work on a Shadowfalcon. I nodded.
All right, do it.
She picked up a pair of shears from one of the shelves and began cutting. I shut it out of my mind. I wouldn't let it distract me from the task at hand.
I'm sure Kara has extra clothes for you after we finish and you're all bandaged up.
As long as you can do it while I'm working, do whatever you need to do.
You're going to work at the same time?
She asked.
I don't know if it can wait that long. Just be as gentle as possible, but do what you have to do. I can take it, I promise.
I only hoped that I wasn't lying, but I needed her to believe that I knew it for a fact. She pulled out her first aid pouch, and I recognized it as the one from earlier that she was going to use on Linus. Conscious thoughts of him started creeping back into my mind. His hand squeezing mine. His last words. The way PanTech had killed him on the street, like he wasn't the great man he was. I'm glad he killed them both. I wish I could have killed them myself.
Taylor? Are you all right?
Mother asked, noticing that I had drifted off into my own thoughts.
No, Mother,
Kara interrupted me as she burst back into the room. She immediately turned her back after seeing me.
Oh, sorry. Should I?
No, Kara. Just be thankful we're not outside at the clinic or even in the tent. Put my tools on the end of the table and fetch me some cactus wine. Mother will need it and so will I.
Kara said nothing, just followed my instructions, placed my tools next to me, and ran out of the room. She returned quickly with the wine. Mother poured it carefully over my wounds before handing it to me. I attempted to turn it up, as I desperately wanted a drink, and thought it might help me with my nerves and a bit of the pain. Mother put her hand under it and helped me bring it to my lips. I drank several big gulps and sat it on the table before nodding to Mother.
I'm ready when you are.
I said. She positioned herself to my right, and Kara stood to my left. I examined his right wing carefully and found several feathers had been crushed. Unfortunately, he was bleeding from all 3 of them. A bird didn't have much blood to lose.
No break?
I winced as the needle entered my shoulder. I clenched my teeth and did my best to speak through the pain.
No breaks on the, wing bones, but 3 feathers are, broken, and they are blood.
I drew in a sharp breath. Thankfully, Mother was ignoring my obvious distress, just as I'd asked her to.
They're blood feathers. I need pliers and starch, quickly.
Kara ran out of the room, quickly returned with the starch in a small bowl, and grabbed a pair of pliers from a drawer. She grabbed the bottle of wine from the table and poured some onto the pliers, wiping them down with a clean cloth, then handing them to me. I plucked the 3 feathers rapidly, then reached for the wine from Kara. I nearly dropped it when Mother pulled the stitching tight and cut it.
See, I'm even faster than you.
She teased.
Probably because I'm not as rough.
I said, almost allowing myself to smile. I poured wine onto the wounds, then picked up some of the starch and stuffed it onto them.
With those feathers out, the bleeding can stop.
I winced as Mother poured wine over the smaller wound on my other shoulder.
He was lucky.
I finished.
So were you by the look of it. What happened, Taylor?
Mother had begun expertly wrapping my bandages as we spoke.
The long story will have to wait. The short story is that the desert is a hard place to survive at night.
I replied. A thought struck me.
Oh, the fox. There was a fox that was still there too. Got hit with Ghost's paralysis toxin. We need to go in the morning.
At first, I thought the floor in the room was rising, but realized that when Mother grabbed one arm and Kara the other, it was the other way around.
I'll take Kara. If it's still there and alive, we can handle it. You need to rest.
Mother insisted. I sighed.
No,
I didn't even bother finishing that sentence. I wasn't kidding anyone. There's no way I'd be able to go out at first light, which was probably coming very soon, to check on the fox. It would be selfish of me to insist that I be the one who goes. Kara could handle it, and if Mother could handle herself that well at night, alone in the desert, she could certainly handle the mostly gentle creatures that roamed the desert by day.
Okay.
I conceded.
You win.
Good. So I'll cage Ghost and make sure the bandage around his eyes is tied well, and you won't need anything else.
Hey, Kara.
I said.
No, Taylor. I'm not hearing anything else from you. You're going to lie down and rest.
That's fine, but could you at least get me a shirt?
Oh!
She said, wincing.
Sorry, of course.
And thank you.
I added.
Thank you both.
Chapter 20. My dream was familiar. I was lying on my back in the sand, and my skin felt comforted by its soft bed of warmth. The sun kissed my face like a loving parent and made me feel safe. A gentle breeze passed over me, giving me goosebumps and making my skin tingle in the most wonderful way. A figure approached in the distance. I could hear it screaming, but I couldn't make out what it was saying or who it was. It bent down over me and continued whatever it was doing, but I was undisturbed. A small herd of deer walked past, and I tilted my head ever so slightly to watch them attentively. They weren't scrawny like the ones I'd seen reluctantly chewing on the remains of the snake. Their coats were beautiful, and their eyes were sharp. One stopped to look back at me, chewing a mouthful of grass, as calm and at peace as I was. If I weren't so comfortable, I'd have gone out to see it. I wasn't sure how, but I knew it wouldn't flee from me. We were too content to leave what we were doing. The figure over me was still yelling, and I could start to hear it now, almost like a whisper. "Move your hand," it seemed to say. That's what it was. A little louder this time. "Move your hand," she shouted. It was a woman. But who? She kept repeating the same thing. "Move your hand, move your hand, move your hand." My hand, my hand. I looked down, and I was holding both hands over my side. I was wearing armor, like what PanTech soldiers wear. When I saw my hands, my feelings started to change from serene comfort to agony, unlike anything I'd felt before. "Move your hand," she shouted again. Finally, I listened and moved my hands. The wound was grotesque. Was I dying? Of course I was dying. Nothing would survive a wound like this. The girl grabbed my hand and held it tightly, her body shaking with sobs. I could almost make her out, but not quite. Her voice was certainly familiar. Very familiar. Was that? I could feel my body going cold, slipping into that eternal sleep we all eventually fall into. I could feel my grip loosening on her hand, but she only gripped tighter. At least I could make out all of the features of her face as the last of my strength slipped away. It was me. I sat up abruptly as my sleep broke, and as bad as the physical pain in my body was, from having moved that quickly with my shoulders freshly wounded, the agony of sadness I felt was so much worse. At that moment, the desire to die again filled my mind and my heart. I wanted it more than anything, to die and be free of the pain. If the gods were real, and I saw Linus again, all the better.
Glad to see you're awake, but would you mind moving a little slower? It always hurts worse the next day, so you better preserve the stitches that are in there now,
Mother said. I tried to laugh, but even though I could normally fake a laugh in any situation, all of my will couldn't summon one now. Instead, I started crying again.
Oh, Taylor,
She said, leaning toward me.
you dreamed about Linus, didn't you? I'm sorry.
In an instant, the switch flipped on my emotions, as they often did, and I growled with the surge of anger.
Don't be.
I said, slowly lowering myself back onto the bed. I noticed something odd out of the corner of my eye. Was that?
Is that the fox sitting on your lap?
I asked, craning my neck to see better. She continued stroking the fox's fur and smiled.
It is. Isn't she beautiful?
I nodded.
She is, but is she still paralyzed?
Mother sighed.
Completely. I've been watching both her and Ghost. Not so much as a twitch yet.
If they don't come around soon, I'll have to force water into her. Ghost is too small for that, and he'll need to start eating soon so he can heal properly. I should have asked you to...
Get some of the boar meat? Oh, we did. I've saved some to feed Ghost and the fox, but we're going to have some fine meals at home, too.
Mother?
Yes?
She asked, tilting her head.
How do you know how to dress a boar, track a person through the desert night, and fight a panther off with a spear? And how did you know about Linus's armor, the way it was supposed to come apart?
She grinned.
That's a lot of questions all at once.
You don't have to answer them in any particular order, but could you answer them?
She looked away, stopped stroking the fox for a moment, and seemed to contemplate on the request.
I don't like talking about it, but you deserve an answer.
I said nothing, suddenly filling with the anxiety of thinking I knew at least some of the answers already.
I was born in a different adversity zone. There it was much larger than our village. It was a kingdom, and the ruler of that kingdom was called Emperor.
I held up my hand.
I'm sorry. Just give me a moment to process that. You weren't born here? You must be the only one here who wasn't. How is that even possible?
She smiled, but it was a pained smile.
I'll get to that part. It'll be easier if I just explain as I go.
I nodded.
When I was a small girl, things weren't so bad for the people of the kingdom. However, when I was 15, the old emperor passed away, leaving his young son to rule the kingdom. Most things stayed the same at first, but it wasn't long before the differences started to reveal themselves. The new emperor was obsessed with surrounding himself with young, beautiful women. They worked in his palace, dressed him, prepared his meals, and even served as his private bodyguards. One day, I was out in the fields with my father, tending to our farm, when the emperor walked by with his new bodyguards. I marveled at them at first. They were so beautiful but fierce at the same time. I caught his eye, and he called for us to speak with him. I never saw my family again after that day, and I still don't know what happened to them. It wasn't until after I was forced to join the emperor's service that I recognized the sadness in most of those girls' eyes and came to know it well.
She sighed, dabbing her eyes with her sleeve.
You don't have to keep going if you don't want.
I offered, suddenly feeling remorse for how harshly I'd judged my mother throughout my life. It seemed I knew very little about her.
No, it's all right. It's been a while since I spoke about this, is all.
She collected herself and continued.
At first, I was a dancer. Being so young, I wasn't much good for anything else. I quickly realized that the girls who didn't put much effort into capturing the emperor's attention were placed in the most difficult roles. I was moved to the position of assisting one of the palace's doctors after failing to capture the emperor's eyes anymore as one of his dancers. But after noticing the emperor rubbed his shoulder often, I borrowed a recipe from one of the doctor's books for a salve to soothe muscle pain. I convinced the emperor to allow me to apply it and give him a massage, and before long, I tended to him daily. On my 19th birthday, I was moved to his personal guard and trained with the spear.
Wait,
I interrupted.
did you decline to join PanTech after taking the exam?
She shook her head.
The emperor had much power, but he thought he had more than he did. Every year when it was time for testing, he would hide away all the young women and forbade them from revealing themselves or taking the exam. It wasn't until I was 23 that PanTech soldiers marched into the palace. The emperor ordered his bodyguards to protect him, but none dared. He was dragged away screaming, and I don't know what they did with him after that. PanTech installed a poor young woman as the new empress, but I'm not sure what came of that. A large exam was held to accommodate all the women who had been denied in the years previous. I passed, was more than happy to leave, and was assigned to the role of soldier. As a soldier, you can leave that service young. It's actually one of the most sought-after positions in PanTech, and anyone given the role must be both exceptionally bright and physically able. I completed many years of service and met your father shortly before my time was up. Since he'd declined his invitation to join PanTech, despite his exceptional score, I made up my mind to stay here with him.
I didn't know soldiers could do that. That means Linus really could have stayed here. I could have declined my invitation if I passed the exam. And
I trailed off, choking back the urge to cry again.
I'm sorry, Taylor. I wish I could have done something to stop it.
why did you keep this from me for all of these years? Even Father didn't tell us, and Ferris doesn't seem to know either.
He doesn't.
But why?
I asked, pressing.
I was asked not to.
She said.
Just like that?
Just like that. I know you don't like PanTech, but my experience with them was different than yours. They were my savior from a far worse situation. If you must be a slave, better to serve the more righteous master than the cruel one?
Yeah, I'm not so sure I buy into that, Mother. Sorry.
I understand. I don't expect you to. You're your own woman.
Do you? Do you really understand? Because it sounds like you don't. I'm sorry your life was awful, but when you and Father fell in love, you were able to be together. Linus is dead. We can never be together now. He died because he helped me and because he saved our village from that giant snake you saw. You did see it, right?
She sat quietly for a moment, considering everything I'd said with far more calmness than I'd expected.
So that's why they went after him. But that shouldn't be worthy of execution, and how did they know so quickly?
They heard me shooting, I'm sure.
Yes, but not him. All we heard in the village was your rifle firing, not his.
I don't know, and I don't really feel like going to ask them at the moment. It was probably a newer tracking technology on their armor or their blasters.
I don't think.
As she began to speak, the fox raised her head, and we both froze to watch. No sooner than she had done so, she lowered her head again.
The paralysis must be wearing off. That means Ghost will be moving soon if he isn't already.
It's all right. Kara is in there with him. She came home just before you woke up. She wanted you to come and see her when you came to. She has something to show you.
Chapter 21. I walked into Kara's shop, closing the door behind me, and found her working on something at the table. Ghost stood up in his cage, eyeing everything with caution and curiosity, but a distinct lack of fear. "What have you tied around his legs?" I asked. She brightened up.
So glad you asked. This should help you control him a bit on your glove. Your glove, I reinforced with 2 additional layers of leather, by the way.
I scrunched my chin and nodded repeatedly.
I'm really impressed, actually. I had no idea you could do all this. What's that you're working on now?
I pointed to the leather piece she'd stretched over a wooden ball in front of her.
Oh, this?
She held it up and spun it in her hand.
You know how birds don't really pay attention to things they can't see? I thought this would help you train him if you had him around other people.
I held up my hands.
Oh no, absolutely not. I am not taking him out around other people. The hood is a good idea, but he's staying a secret for as long as I can keep it.
Kara frowned.
Why not? Ghost will give everyone hope. It's a good omen, Taylor.
Let's say that's true. All the more reason to keep him a secret. If PanTech finds out that everyone thinks he's some kind of good omen, a sign of prosperity to come, they'll pluck him right in front of everyone. We have to maintain an optimal level of adversity, remember?
Okay, if you say so. You're probably right anyway.
She frowned and her shoulders sagged, but she continued stitching.
Sorry to be so depressing, Kara. And sorry for what I did to you. You didn't deserve...
Kara shook her head.
No, you don't need to apologize. I'm sorry for what you went through. I can't even imagine what you must have felt, so please don't apologize to me.
I smiled and wrapped my arms around her shoulders.
Thank you, Kara. I was worried you might not forgive me.
Oh, please.
She said playfully, returning to her stitching. She looked from the hood to Ghost, then to the hood again.
You know, maybe let's let him get more used to us before we try to put this on.
That would probably be a good idea.
I said.
Say, I wonder why the toxin doesn't immediately kill what it comes into contact with. It seems to be potent. From what I could tell, it runs from some kind of glands above his beak onto his beak and enters the bloodstream when he slices something with it.
She shrugged.
Maybe he measures the dosage somehow.
Sure, but he doesn't inject it directly, like a snake. He basically drips it onto the open wound. Then there's the rumor that they're able to turn the venom on themselves to kill themselves if they have no way to escape imminent death. Obviously, swallowing it doesn't have the same effect, or they'd accidentally contaminate themselves with it all the time. It must be some kind of backward path into their own bloodstream.
Kara sat the hood down, scratching her chin and leaning back into her chair, staring at Ghost intently.
Too bad we can't just ask him,
she said.
Hey, Ghost. We're really curious. Would you mind explaining your toxin to us?
I asked. Ghost looked between the two of us, as though he were genuinely trying to understand the sounds we were making. Maybe he was. She sighed but smiled.
Okay, obviously we can ask him. Thanks for that.
You're welcome,
I retorted, my tone much brighter than it had been. I really was thankful for Kara. We were never competitive the way many girls were, despite our closeness in age and our working together. Kara always put her relationships above any kind of recognition. She preferred to live quietly and stay out of the way, attracting as little attention to herself as possible. It's what I wanted too, or so I thought. Either I was lying to myself, or I was just really bad at it. A knock came at Kara's door, and a muffled voice carried over the other side.
Your brother and father are here, Taylor. And I could also use some advice on what to do with this fox. It's alert and looking around.
Kara and I nodded at one another, and she put a small sheet over Ghost's cage before we exited the room. Father and Ferris were both gawking at the fox when we entered the common room, as Mother continued holding her. Ferris started to reach out and touch it, but stopped when he noticed that Kara and I walk into the room.
Taylor,
Ferris yelled, making the fox recoil.
you're awake.
I held my finger over my lips and pointed to the fox with my other hand.
It's a wild animal, Ferris. Please don't scare it. And yes, I'm awake.
He and Father stepped over to me and wrapped their arms around me tightly. Too tightly, and I winced.
Do you mind?
Yes. Do you mind?
Mother echoed.
I've already scolded her about minding her stitches, and I told the two of you only a few minutes ago.
The two of them abruptly released their hug at Mother's scolding, and Father laid his hand lightly on my shoulder.
I'm sorry, Tay. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I would have tried to help.
Then I'm glad you weren't, and I'm sure Linus would have felt the same way. He stopped me from helping him, and he'd have found a way to stop you too. Only PanTech is to blame for this, and no one else.
The silence in the room, which extended far longer than it should have, gave away the agreement. Even Mother didn't argue with me this time, although I was sure she didn't quite feel the same way. She was a retired PanTech soldier, after all.
Anyway,
I continued,
I have something to show you, assuming Mother hasn't ruined the surprise.
Mother beamed.
Oh no, I wouldn't dare.
She said, handing the fox over to Kara, who had been standing there with her arms open, hinting that she'd like to put it away.
Just remember,
She said, looking between Ferris and Father.
I was the first person who got to see it after Taylor.
Everyone, follow me.
I said, making my way back into Kara's room, leaving the door swung open behind me, allowing everyone to funnel in.
Stay at that end of the room, please.
I added, looking over my shoulder as I approached the cage. I slowly pulled the sheet from the cage, revealing a suddenly alert but seemingly fearless ghost. Father and Ferris stood there for a moment, frozen and silent. Ferris leaned forward as though he was trying to stretch just a little closer to make sense of what he clearly didn't believe he was seeing. Father dropped to his knees.
Oh, gods! I can't believe it. I always knew they were real. I saw one when I was a boy, but no one believed me. No one has ever captured one, not as long as this village has stood. Not even PanTech has managed it. Taylor, you are...
He hesitated.
I'm sorry to say this, considering the timing and circumstances, but you are blessed by the gods to have performed such a feat. This must be an omen, but I don't know what kind.
I'd never heard Father mention the gods so directly before. It was highly frowned upon to discuss them anymore, and Mother and Father never did all that often, even behind closed doors. Her I could understand. They weren't her gods after all, but I was fairly certain Father didn't even believe in them. I was even more certain that I didn't. If they existed, they clearly had less power than PanTech.
PanTech doesn't care about the gods, Father, and the gods don't care about PanTech. He will be kept a secret so he doesn't end up plucked and cooked in the town square. If I hear one more thing about how he's an omen, I'm going to lose my mind. He's a bird, albeit a rare one, but just a bird. Maybe I should have named him Omen instead of Ghost.
Kara shrugged and smiled. Father rose to his feet.
Sorry, I was just a little overwhelmed. When I was a boy, many more people talked about the Shadowfalcon than they do now. Some even said that the one who could tame the bird would be the chosen of the gods. I'd even heard that the gods would grant them immortality.
I shuddered.
Sounds like a curse to me.
Then you should probably stop behaving as though you're immortal then.
He said, shaking his head.
I just still can't believe it. A real Shadowfalcon. Have you noticed how closely he pays attention to us? He looks between us as we're speaking. Did you notice that? Do you?
He hesitated for a moment, but continued.
Do you think he understands us?
Despite the urge to dismiss it, I had to consider this seriously.
I have noticed, but I'm not sure. I don't think he understands us now. How could he? But maybe he is actually trying to. It's possible that he's studying our tone and our actions when we say certain words, like a small child learning their parents' language. Or maybe he's just curious, as most birds are, and we fascinate him. He's probably seen just as few humans as we've seen of his kind. I just expected him to be more...
Afraid?
Kara interrupted.
I expected him to be terrified. That's why I rushed to make him the hood, but now I'm not sure he'll even need it. Do you think there's something wrong with him?
I shook my head.
No, I think bravery and stupidity may just be his blessing and curse. He reminds me of, well, Linus.
I paused for a moment, not daring to continue speaking, feeling the tears welling up in my eyes and my voice choking. I closed my eyes and looked down for a long moment.
I'm going to take good care of him.
We're going to take good care of him. I'll be with you every step of the way. Whenever you need help treating him, or if you need your glove repaired or new accessories for his training, just come to me and I'll help you.
Kara said, smiling. I took a step toward Kara, my arms extended out, and embraced her in the tightest hug I could muster. It hurt so much, but I didn't care. I didn't deserve a friend like Kara. I'm not sure anyone did. Mother stepped up beside us and put her arms around us both.
We're all here for you, Taylor. I don't care what PanTech says. You've had enough adversity for a lifetime.
I lost my battle with the tears, and they flowed freely from my eyes. I tried to answer, but couldn't even choke out anything resembling words. I released Kara and hugged Mother just as tightly. She stroked my hair as she held me gently in her arms. I never knew for certain if she loved me, and I always doubted that she did. But between the previous night, when she saved me in the desert, and the way she held me at this moment, I knew for certain that she loved me so much. Everything she'd ever said or done was to help me, because she knew that beauty, charm, and manipulation were weapons, just like the spear or sword. She wanted me to be able to use them effectively. I should have listened to her. Finally, I was able to slow the tears enough to compose myself.
I love you, Mother.
Father and Ferris stepped over and joined in our growing group hug, and I couldn't help but notice the oddly curious expression in the falcon's vibrant green eyes. If you're enjoying F. Lockhaven's audio content, please like and subscribe. It's the best way to help out the channel.